American, it harkens me back to what I've learned in the history books before so many were banned. Let's have these public lynchings. Let's do this, and we'll have drinks, and ladies will come in their fine dresses and those cinched waists, and they will have their children there while a black man is lynched and suffers, and they cut off body parts. Because I didn't say anybody was killed here, but this is the kind of pleasure that what American, if you're conditioned to think this is good and it pleasures you, you're getting some kind of endorphins from this, you're a sicko. This is sick. And we need mass counseling here. I mean, they've got to have strong degrees in trauma and how to dial it back, unpack it. Sick.
Absolutely sick. And it's this sort of stuff is the goal of it is to get people to be as heartless as a Stephen Miller. Don't think of these people as people. They're not people anymore. It doesn't matter if they were contributing to your community, they were building houses. Literally, it doesn't matter. They're bad because of who they are. This is fundamentally identity politics. It's all it is. It's xenophobia, it's hatred, intended to distract you from the actual agenda, which is tax cuts for billionaires. But you should hate these people. And that's why we're seeing stories like the woman calling the cops on a woman selling empanadas, because you've been told by the regime, you're better than these people. You can now wield the threat of law enforcement and deportation against anyone with a skin color 1 or 2 tones darker than yours, and you can have fun with that. And if you're an adult, you can be a Karen, you can have fun with that. If you're a school kid, you can have fun with that, because we're gonna jump ahead, because there is an 11-year-old girl, there was an 11-year-old girl in Texas who was bullied for weeks about her family's immigration status and threats to report them to ICE. And she ended up taking her own life, which is already one of the worst stories I've literally ever heard. But it gets slightly worse in that she had been meeting with a school counselor for weeks. Her family was never notified about the bullying. Now look, can we control what every 3rd, 4th, 5th grader is going to do? No, we can't. But what we can do is not have the most powerful and richest people in society telling America there's nothing better, nothing more deeply patriotic than hating black and brown people. And that is unfortunately the message that we're getting. It is awesome that we have an industrial system of mass deportation and concentration camps. It's great that accused shoplifters will end up in Guantanamo Bay. It rocks that we're splitting up families once again. That is the message being sent to every American, and some of them like that message. They get off on that message, and then they will act on it. They'll wield ICE, they'll wield law enforcement as weapons against people they don't like. I'm not talking hypothetically, it is already happening. Sharon, any final thoughts before we close?
No, I just, come on, America. I understand. There's a lot going on. People have a lot of things to do. And should the burden be ours? No, but maybe it should. We allowed this to happen, okay? This is our problem to fix, and it's time to fix it. And I mean, go all the way, like Mr. Bowles, whatever the handle was. If he can go big, we can go bigger, okay? These people are sickos, they're tyrants, and they're disgusting. And I said this yesterday on Dr. Richie's show, and I'll say it again here. I'm tired of the intellectual dishonesty. This is not like, we're not talking about theories here. We're talking about real life matters, and AOC has it right. Fight, bring it on, indict me, and let's take this thing all the way. That's what we should all be doing. We should all pause and get after that.
100%, I could not agree more. And I wish we had more time to talk about this. We unfortunately are up against the end of the show, but we will be picking up this conversation tomorrow with Francesca Fiorentini. For now, Sharon, as always, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And there's no more grace. You're useful. So just stop it. All right, you're fine.
See it. The light catches it.
You're fine.
Anyway, thank you. It's the least of my worries right now, thankfully. Anyway, with that said, thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. Francesca's gonna be here tomorrow. I think inaccurately said that Brett's gonna be here this Friday. He's not. He's gonna be taking a little bit of time off, which he well deserves. But Daria is gonna be joining us this Friday for her, I believe, first ever garbage person of the week. So that'll be a lot of fun. And as I'd previously said, tomorrow after the aftermath, 30 minutes after it, we'll be doing our members hangout. Spread the word. Hopefully we can get everybody in there and we'll hang out then. For now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
Welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day with me, none other than Mr. Jackson White. Always fascinating to have his analysis. First story of the day, teenagers handcuffed while walking. While black. Here it is.
Black hoodie, black pants, black shorts. Come here. Just stand by the van right there. I just want to talk to y'all. That's it.
We're not trying to talk to y'all, bro.
Okay, well, I'm trying to talk to you.
No, bro.
I'm giving you a lawful order to stop.
That's no lawful order.
Yeah, it is. All right.
Come on.
Go ahead, call your mom.
Bro.
Don't.
You're not going to touch me. You're on me for no reason. Call my mom, bro. Call my mom, bro.
I'm
He on
telling
me
you
for no reason, bro.
I'm telling you
He on me for no reason. He on me for no reason, bro. We trying to go to our friend's house. We trying to go to our friend's house. He on me for no reason. He on me for no reason.
6-1 taser. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. I'm gonna tase you. Get on the ground. Put the phone down.
What's up, bro?
Lay down. On your stomach.
What's up, bro? What's up, bro?
Good.
What's up, bro? It's okay. It's all right, bro. It's good. It's good, bro.
Stand behind your back.
It's good, bro.
Here we go again. Put up the picture for a mask. I'm going to give you the background to this Fort Bend County Sheriff's deputy. His name is Mason Kohler. Officer Kohler approached two black teenagers walking on the public sidewalk through a residential neighborhood. Nothing illegal about that. He orders them to stop because he wanted to, quote, talk with them, claiming he was giving them a lawful order to stop. But see, that's not how it works. The young men knew their rights and continued to walk away from Officer Kohler, telling him, that's no lawful order, end quote. The officer then walked up to them, grabbing the 17-year-old male by the arm and then dragging him to the ground, where he sat on top of him and handcuffed him with two other cops. Quote, I'm just trying to talk to you, Kohler said as he was manhandling the teen. If you would have listened to me, but Kohler never articulated whether he had a reasonable suspicion of probable cause to engage. Before I continue that part is not a part of importance. It is the part of importance. Why? Because he could not articulate the suspicion. He could not thus give a lawful anything. He has no right of interaction. The individual, meaning the teenager, retains all constitutional rights to simply not engage in law enforcement. Am I free to go? As some would put it. The probable cause, the suspicion never articulated by the officer. Nothing. The teens had committed no crime to justify the violent detainment, despite how common it is detaining people for walking while black. It is actually not lawful. Quote, when a law enforcement officer gives you an order to do something, you have to do that, Kohler told the teen after he handcuffed and placed the teenager in the back of a patrol car. Ladies and gentlemen, that is false. That is false. Cops are not allowed to simply walk up and bark orders and expect instant compliance. It does not work that way. There has to be a legal basis for the order, despite Officer Kohler's belief that citizens must comply with an order or else face abuse and arrest. Officer Kohler also claimed in the video the teens were running away from him. When the video shows they were walking away from him, he also claimed the teen he detained was, quote, fighting him when he was actually resisting an unlawful arrest without physical violence. And Kohler also accused the teens of, quote, reaching, which is a common law enforcement excuse to justify abuse, even killing a citizen over an imaginary gun. However, the video does not appear to show the teens doing any of that, reaching anything. Why is Officer Kohler emphasizing falsities if the interaction is legitimate? The very reason the officer is embellishing the story, lying on the narrative, providing a false report, is because he knows what he actually did does not hold legal muster. So the Texas law firm, the Greening Law Group, they've got involved, describes it, considered reasonable suspicion under state law. They describe it as, quote, in order for a police officer to pull you over in Texas or even detain you in Texas, there must be a reasonable amount of suspicion to do so. Although law enforcement officials need to have reasonable suspicion to stop or detain, they are not allowed to arrest you on reasonable suspicion alone. However, reasonable suspicion alone is not enough to arrest you for potentially driving under the influence. To facilitate an arrest, he must have what is known as probable cause. There was no probable cause for the arrest. There was no reasonable suspicion articulated for the interaction. The rights were maintained by the teenagers. The video shows Kohler's plan was to detain them, then compare them to video footage they had of actual suspects they were looking for, which is not how law enforcement works. Quote, so right now, we're just going to review something real quick on our video footage. And if we determine that you guys aren't involved, guess what? You're free to go, Kohler says. Another deputy then tells Kohler that the actual suspect was described as having colored dreads, which was when Kohler walked back to the patrol car to look at the teen's hair, which had no color. Kohler told the child's mother after she had arrived on the scene that the teenagers did, in fact, match the description of two black men who had committed an armed robbery in the area, which was about 1.5 miles away. According to Justin Pulliam, who runs the YouTube Police Accountability Channel, The Corruption Report, and also lives in Fort Bend County. So the sheriff, all right, let's put him up. This is the sheriff of the county, Eric Fagan. He runs the department. Sheriff, obviously, your men do not know what simple law enforcement is, and they simply assumed two young black men, were suspects when they did not fit the description. Here's the other dynamic. Outside of the police report, the narrative being basically falsified in order to justify the interaction and the arrest, the cop tells the mother they matched the description. The mother came. Remember, the young man was yelling, somebody called my mother. The mother pulls up. Cop says they matched the description of individuals who committed armed robbery. Once again, providing a false narrative to the mother of the child. So if you believe that the interaction was in good faith and this was simply a mistake, why would he then, or they, cover up, create a false message, engage in deception to cover their tracks? It's just a mistake. They knew at that time that the young man did not match the description, but said so anyway to the mother. Now, here we are, Jackson. A lot of twists and turns, but the reality is these young men, they have been taught very well by their family to know their rights, not engage, walk away. That's not a lawful order, yet they still get arrested, detained, and treated this way. What's that?
Yeah, I think they definitely handled themselves very well throughout this situation because, you know, they were being filmed. So this officer ultimately doesn't have any type of real recourse to say that they were being rude or disrespectful or that they were cursing at him. So, you know, they really handled themselves solidly throughout this whole process. And, you know, just as you led on earlier, it can't be true that whatever an officer tells you to do, you have to do it. Because if that was the case, then we just wouldn't have any rights at all.
Right.
We wouldn't have any type of civil rights whatsoever, because there's so many different kinds of officers in addition to, patrol officers. There's government agents of various sorts. So that can't be true, and it's not. And he knows that it isn't. It just seemed like easy pickings to him because they were two young black kids, walking around minding their own business. And he didn't give them a reason. He just said, "You got to come over here because I said so." It's not like he was like, "Oh, there was a shooting around the corner. You tell me something about that," or "There was a robbery," or "There was a car accident. Did you see it?" He was just like, "Come here, because I told you to come here." So no, definitely I tip my hat to these two young brothers, because it's clear as day that this officer was just abusing his power. So if there is some type of lawsuit that comes from this, then I think that they're making a good example.
Yeah, I concur. And hopefully there will be an update as to litigation pending. All right. You put your money in the bank. You save for many years. You have a way to retire. Somebody decides to commit fraud. The bank falls for it. They got your money. They take all your money out, the fraud. The bank says you get nothing. Put it up full mass. Chase Bank. Chase Bank customer, this is in Chicago, has now lost her entire life savings after a fraud incident drained her account. But because she did not report it within the required time frame, the bank has refused to reimburse, leaving her penniless. Courtney White, former sergeant with the Markham Police Department, now living in Chicago's Calumet Heights neighborhood, said a decade's worth of savings, it was $87,000. It vanished in an instant. Here's what happened. Quote, "I worked my butt off," Ms. White said, according to NBC5. Quote, "I was always the overtime queen at work. So all my overtime money went into my savings for my family. I deliberately had my savings account set up where I would have to walk into the bank to make transactions," White said. For years, White made monthly withdrawals to give her son his allowance. Over time, she also used the account to help cover her daughter's college tuition and travel expenses. Over the next 10 years, White says she saved up approximately $87,000. Now, there's an important note here. She set her account up intentionally so that it could not be taken advantage of by anyone else. It required that she walk into the bank. Likely because of her law enforcement background and fraud that she's seen, she had this caution about her own bank account. So in fall of 2022, Ms. White received insufficient funds alert, prompting her to check her account balance for the first time in months. It's a savings account. To her dismay, Ms. White discovered daily withdrawals totaling thousands of dollars, and later learned someone had been impersonating her. The withdrawals were made in person at multiple Chase branches. Now remember, she set her account up in such a way where she has to be the individual to get the money herself. Chase, however this happened, decided that somebody else was in fact her. Now, quote, "If you look at all the withdrawal slips," she says, "you can clearly see the difference in the handwriting." White said, according to the station, she pointed out a stark contrast between how she writes dates on the withdrawal slips and how the person pretending to be her did. Quote, "I don't know how Chase could match that," White said. Now, Miss White said, quote, somebody should have recognized that this is an outrageous amount of transactions every day. It should have been some sort of alert, White said. I've never banked like that. And like I said, I've had Chase for 20 years. Ms. White makes a fascinating point that obviously I think many of us would assume would happen for us to alert us. I get alerts when I'm shopping and I utilize my bank card. It may be something that I've never purchased before or an amount that's outside of my spending norm. It sends me a text message. This is to protect you. Did you make this transaction? Yes or no? She never received any of that. White also said Chase could not provide surveillance footage to identify who had made withdrawals under her name because too much time had passed. In a statement, Chase said after reviewing the case, the bank's decision remains final. A closer review of complaints against Chase Bank revealed that more than a dozen customers reported being robbed or scammed while using the ATM. So here's the thing. Obviously, this woman did everything that she could think to do to protect her money. She saved up. It's a lot of money for a working person. It's a lot of money. I would be devastated. You would be devastated. For the bank to not reimburse her the $87,000, which let's be clear, Chase got it. For them not to do this is quite unconscionable. So the bad press, the bad PR they get from this, obviously they were willing to receive due to the fact that this is their final decision. I do encourage the officer, the former officer, to file civil litigation. That is my opinion and recommendation. File civil litigation so that you can have subpoena rights and then get the records for surveillance. All right, Jackson, thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, other than, to me, this seems like whoever is in charge of that regional area, because, Chase Bank is huge.
Yeah.
So stuff like this goes on, and it's not necessarily something that the person all the way at the top always knows about. Like this thing is massive. So whoever's in charge of this regional area just is kind of like, I don't want to look like I made a mistake like this, or they just have some type of disdain for this woman for whatever reason, because as you pointed out, Chase got $87,000. I mean, like,
right.
That ain't even a drop in the bucket to Chase Bank, let alone all the access to. I mean, it's a bank, you know what I mean? So, and it's so easy to find out if she was lying about this, all the stops that this person made to take out. Why couldn't she just take it all out if it's her money? This seems like somebody going about stealing it. This is how people do it. They take a little bit out here, a little bit out there to keep certain limits going or whatever it is. There's so many different avenues to, cameras, history. As she pointed out, I've never done anything like this before. Very easy to prove that she didn't do this. So I hope that she can sue or something, because Chase got the money and there's no reason whatsoever to not give it back to her.
Yeah, they're citing an internal policy of reporting time. That's just their company policy, nothing more. That can obviously be overruled by a jury or a court based on the circumstances. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Here's the inside scoop on diners in LA. You want good pastrami sandwich, you go to Factors. You want to see some people in the business, you go to Nate and Al's. You want the best variety? My secret spot's the Nosh. Now here's the inside scoop on politics and news. You go watch the Young Turks live every day at 6 o'clock Eastern.
All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. We got a lot of comments. I will read as many as I can. Okay. Enter, over 9,000. Enter the Dragon. I'm glad these kids did not get seriously injured. Hopefully these cops are fired. They should be criminally charged. Next, TOT reporter. Actually, if a police officer tells you to do something illegal, it's called entrapment. You don't have to do that. Brad Campbell, aka Dragging My Ass, quote, if you had listened to me, the same thing would have happened anyway. That's right. You are absolutely correct. All right. Got something for you, ladies and gentlemen. I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
They really shouldn't be here. What are you doing?
Why shouldn't I be here? I'm sitting in my car minding my own business, and this Caucasian male drives up, starts taking videos and photos of my license plate.
Because we're doing that constantly.
You don't think that some people should be here, and why is that?
You want to know why? Because people are constantly casing. That's why we want to know who's here and who's not. Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me at all, because I happen to own 4 houses in this neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like which ones?
That's none of your business.
Okay, just checking out.
What kind of people are you looking for?
Oh, I'm just looking for people who, well, one thing is,
I'm sitting in my car minding my own business. That's called racially profiling somebody.
Oh, no.
And this is an assumption based on covert racism. Obviously, it has no feeling that somebody that looks like me could possibly own real estate. Probably owns one house in this neighborhood. I own 4 houses in this neighborhood alone. He wants to racially profile me, this gentleman right here. Let's take a look at what his license plate is, actually. Let's take a look.
Well, you see, Mel Karen, you effed around and found out, didn't you? Put it up full mask. I am sure this is not your first time rolling up on somebody like that. This may be your last, but it's definitely not your first. Not in my opinion. Let's keep his picture up. Somebody knows him, hopefully loves him. It's time for an intervention. According to the Post, the Mel Karen here racially profiled a Black property owner. You saw the interaction and, well, the bigotry. Yeah. And I know many will say, and they will all be Trump supporters. Many will say, there's no racism here. He just wants to keep the community safe. Well, do you think if it was a white male like himself, he would have rolled up on this white male, camera, ready? What are you doing here? The people stake this place out all the time. Of course he would not have. He would have smiled and kept rolling. All right, Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a classic case of you don't seem like you belong here.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I mean, that's it's really not deeper than that. I've my dad, when he first moved out to the area that they live in now, because my dad's older, he's just turned 74, so he's seen a lot, grew up through a lot. But he was talking to somebody out here and that he used to work with, and then he told him that he lived out here, and he was like, you can't live there. But it's that subtlety, you know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't seem right. Like, you know what I mean? But again, it's that subtlety is the way that human beings structure a hierarchy. We're social creatures, and that's how we function without thinking about it. So much of what people do, we don't think about it because it's what we are. So, our hierarchical structures are based on all types of things in America and throughout history. It's mostly based on skin color. You have different types of caste systems that are based on, family lineage. There's all types of different structural caste systems, but we still dealing with that. And although we've come a long way, it's still ingrained in our foundation such that it's like, oh, you don't seem like you should be here. You people should be over there. Like we're animals. We're not as smart as we think we are.
Yeah, and it's all as you say, and you say, well, it is societal. So these constructs are created. Typically, we are not aware, we're unconscious to them. And then there's a moment like your father experienced. He's talking to someone that actually knows him, that has a connection to him. And he says something that falls outside of the social framework about his demographic, and they react. And that's how you will know your unconscious bias. And that's when you bring it to the forefront, you challenge it, and you grow your awareness as a human being. All right. One of the saddest stories you ever hear, directly connected to policy. 11-year-old unalives herself after classmates threatened to deport the family. Put her up, full mass. Jocelyn Rojo Carranza, 11-year-old girl in Texas, took her own life after she was allegedly harassed by classmates who threatened to call the authorities and have her family deported. Jocelyn was a 6th grade student at Gainesville Immediate School. Here's her mother. Her mother is Marbella Carranza. She told Univision that her daughter endured bullying from classmates who taunted and threatened to notify immigration and customs enforcement. 6th graders did this. Jocelyn reported this to the school on multiple occasions, but her mother says no action was ever taken. Jocelyn was rushed to a hospital in Dallas on the 3rd of February, died on the 8th of February. Quote, I waited a whole week for a miracle that my daughter would be well, but unfortunately nothing could be done. My daughter will always live for me, and I will always live. I always love her, Marbella said. Classmates allegedly told the young Jocelyn that she would be all alone in the U.S. once her family was deported. The harassment became so aggressive, the 11-year-old was seeing a school counselor more than once a week. Amy Allen is the principal at Gainesville Intermediate School. Dr. Des Montez Stewart is the superintendent of Gainesville Independent School District. They are in charge. Buck stops with them. They are the ones we look for when holding individuals accountable, because they're the ones who receive the credit when it goes right. It doesn't work one way. The 6th grader's death comes amid an aggressive push by the Trump administration to deport human beings who are here in the United States. They would deem it illegally. On Tuesday, the White House posted a video of migrants being shackled and being boarded onto a plane bound for an unknown destination. Here's that video. How do you create future generations guaranteed to hate America? Just like that. How do you increase polarization, conflict, division? Just like that. As a reminder, here's what the White House posted, the official White House Instagram page. Roses are red, violets are blue. Come here illegally and we'll deport you. Here's some of the responses online to the tragic story you just heard about. Members of MAGA quote, Scott Hawks, was she illegal or not? Another wrote, hopefully they get deported so her death isn't in vain. That was from Graham Reese. This poster wrote, that's her parents' fault for breaking the law. Kamala Harris' fault for letting it happen. And your fault for voting these idiots in office. This one wrote, quote, seems like she was parented poorly by her actual criminal mother and father. What is true cannot be contested. To blame anyone other than the criminal parents makes you the problem. Hashtag beta male. You know, the irony is the indoctrination is so deep inside of these MAGA pretenders that they would proclaim to be faith-filled, Christian, and loving. But at the same time, celebrate a baby for being taunted and then unaliving herself. You see, there is zero evidence that any of the taunting was factual in nature. There is no deportation. That doesn't matter. One way or the other, it shouldn't matter at all because life is life, right? Children are to be protected. And I say this often, I'm going to say it again, for those who have been so insensitive, and many of you claim to be part of the Christian evangelical movement, you do realize that your Messiah is a foreigner. And you do realize that you are promoting the adversarial point of view to the notion of unity or Christ consciousness. We're going to help this family. They have started a GoFundMe page. We're going to do what we can. All right. The page, Pray for Jocelyn Rojo. I encourage you to contribute if you're able. Share this message, share this post. How do we overcome this kind of heartlessness in our nation? Well, you do it by promoting and advocating for light. And this is light. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do. There's nothing that can be done to bring this daughter back. But there is something that can be done to at least send a clear message that we are not powerless in the midst of this chaos and heartlessness. We will come together as we always have when this nation and this world has faced a moral decline. All right, Jackson, thoughts?
Yeah, you asked what can be done about, just kind of the culture and the nature of the heartlessness of so many people in this country. It seems that America will have to greatly fall in many ways before a lot of people just wake up and realize that life is real, because none of this is real to these people. Yeah, I mean, even before you get to something as tragic as this is a young child losing their life. I mean, and it reminds you too, for all of us who are now adults, how difficult it really is to be a child and why it's so important, for people to be involved in children's lives and their upbringing, because you got to go through stuff like this. But, where are these kids getting this? They're getting it obviously from their parents, but the political culture that we're neck deep in this country, just sticking it to the libs, everything. It's like a football game. None of this is real. Look at, Elon Musk just willy-nilly doing whatever he wants. And they're like, oh, well, what about Dr. Fauci? People didn't vote for him. None of this is real. It's like no matter what happens, they're going to justify it just so that their team can stay on track. Perhaps people are going to have to experience lots of war, because this administration is, these people are crazy. So don't be surprised if we end up at war with Iran in the next couple of years or something along those lines. I mean, America's blood hungry anyway, but is that going to have to happen? Or millions of people going to have to lose their jobs again? But this time, maybe from something not like a pandemic. So it's more clear and obvious that politics matter. And it's not saying, are people going to lose whatever it is? That's unfortunately what's going to happen before a lot of people just snap out of it.
Yeah, there's a great awakening happening, and some people refuse to wake up. But they're being forced into the reality that is, surely. All right, we'll bring you updates if there are developments. We have more on the other side. It is indisputable. Stick and stay.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
All right, welcome back. A lot of show left. Let me read some of the beautiful comments. I appreciate everyone. Kara says the rampant cruelty that has been unleashed in America is truly heartbreaking. That's right. Next to Porter, if I saw the actual client going around to different branches and pulling money, I would be suspicious. Like maybe they're being blackmailed. How did this not raise any flags? And it is interesting because every time someone looks at that account, they are able to see this person is making a lot of abnormal interactions with the bank. Knuckle Dragon, what is your wallet? What's in your wallet? An incompetent bank. Next to Porter. Says, just remind everyone, coming to the United States legally, misdemeanor, we have a felon in the White House. Knuckle Dragon, solidarity with my immigrant friends, regardless of if you're legally here or not, you don't deserve this crap. Agreed. David Morris says, I lack the vocabulary to adequately insult MAGA to the degree to which they deserve. We all do. It's a feeling beyond words, is it not? Raymond_Dragon. The RFK Jr. wants to stop medicated people. I wish a Karen Wood incidents are going to go nuclear. I'm shaking my head. Yep, that's right. And Dana Manning, hello, all you beautiful people. Hello back to you. Thank you for that. Mike Nice, good afternoon. Doc Jackson, MOD's in chat. Thank you for that. Good afternoon to you. Sarah Layla, Doc's right. This is what he does for fun. I'll talk about Mel Karen. This ain't that. He looking for black people. And French_247 says, lawyer up, go after Chase. Yeah, my recommendation, lawyer up. Love Big 41. If they gave my money away, it's the bank's fault. That's right. It's the bank's fault. Who had possession of the money? All right. And welcome to Disputable Epitaph. And Jackal Dragon 1991. Twitch, what's the probable cause? They're just walking. You're talking about the black children? None. No probable cause at all. All right. Here we go. So Trevor Noah gives a controversial take on racial integration. Here it is.
Do you think that integration was the right move? And now I'm separating two things because I know in America people are like, well, of course, I mean, there was racism and there was segregation. And I go, yeah, no. I'm separating them. Let's separate someone being oppressed and someone not being able to get a job and someone not being able to get a bank loan. Let's take all of those, the negative things away, because I'll put myself out personally and say, I think whether we're talking about gifted kids who are anomalous, let's say, to the norm, whether we're talking about and I mean anything that does not fit into a category. I think part of the reason Finland is able to do it is because, have you been to Finland?
It's very homogeneous.
I've been to Finland. You know who's in Finland? Finnish people. That's it. That's it. And because they're all Finnish, there's an idea of like, no, we all head in the same direction. We all know what our actions mean.
Now he's posing this to his guest, who's a professor and Princeton professor, Ruha Benjamin, discussing the issue of integration and really the morality, the morality of the implementation of it, or is it right? Was it right? Done right? Is it wrong? Could it have been done better, et cetera? So his guest makes the argument that integration wasn't the only option and that it didn't ultimately serve Black people to be integrated into institutions and systems that were riddled with anxiety, hierarchy, and white supremacy, okay? So understand the genesis of the conversation, all right? The conversation continues.
Now, even if you shout at me, I know what your shout means. The same way an Italian knows what an Italian shout means.
Yeah.
Right? I know I'm prefacing it with a lot because it's a loaded question.
Yes.
But I would love to know if you think integration was the right solution, maybe. On the other side of, what America, of civil rights.
Yeah. No, I don't. And I don't think it's actually that controversial when if you understand that segregation and integration weren't the only options. Like those are, within those two options, it may seem like integration is the more progressive. Like, of course, we don't want segregation. But again, when you're being integrated into institutions, into a culture that's a supremacist culture, that's a culture that feeds off of hierarchy, that feeds off of insecurity, anxiety, why are we being integrated into that?
Now, once the clip went viral, reactions became, well, plentiful. And D.L. Hughley said it may be the stupidest thing he's ever heard. Here it is.
That may be the stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I've heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough. I'm like, between Elon Musk and Trevor, I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exist. She could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy, all of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live. So what America tends to do is act like it's so long ago. Yes, they don't wear hoods and maybe they don't do the things that they did before, but some of it is still so entrenched, so some is so insidious that I think that people, this is my honest assessment of it. I don't think most white people agree with the motives of white supremacists and white nationalists. I don't think they like their words, but I think they agree with their goals, which is to keep white people in charge.
It's an interesting argument, obviously an argument that has been argued before. Let me provide some contextualization in my opinion. One, I think we're arguing about two distinct dynamics, but we're contextualizing it in an improper way. Integration. I would not necessarily say integration is an evil in itself or was an evil in itself as it relates to racial integration or cultural integration. The problem is that never happened. America never engaged in the process of integration. It's a category, it is a brand. What really happened was assimilation. And assimilation is when you must take on the culture of whatever you're being assimilated to. Assimilation is not integration. Integration can be a very harmonious and very beautiful system operating within the confines of strengths upon strengths. But that's not what it was. It was an assimilation where the same complex that created the segregation was now part of the assimilation protocol. And that was what actually happened, branding aside. Dr. King even echoed the sentiment that he felt as if he was telling Black people to basically integrate into a burning home, a house on fire, all right? So why is he saying this toward the end, right before the end of his journey on this earth with us? Because he's realizing some things. He's realizing that the same structures that created the segregation were holistically in charge of what they then called integration, making it not integration at all, but making it a form of assimilation. All right, hope that makes sense. So Trevor Noah, quote, Trevor Noah almost certainly lives in a nearly all-white neighborhood, LMAO. One user wrote on X, used to be Twitter. Another person wrote, let Trevor Noah go back to South Africa and apartheid. If a white celebrity or professor promoted segregation, they would never host a Grammy and they'll be labeled a racist and fired. Blacks don't have camaraderie. We're real connection is based on culture, mutual goals and interests, said another. But some obviously coming to his and the argument that was presented. MAGA is going to be posting this as owning Trevor Noah, but he brings up great points. America was so racist that integration was very complicated. That's what he's saying, wrote one user. Another quote, Trevor Noah would probably be president if he was American. He's basically the second coming of Obama, another user said. Another person, Samson of Spite. People completely missing the concepts that Trevor Noah is talking about. It's hilarious. He's not saying segregation is the answer. He's saying that integration of a group into a system that is racially biased and structured to hold the middle and lower class down is doomed to fail, another user said. And we're able to talk about this in hindsight. We're able to talk about this in hindsight. Those who were fighting for equality were really fighting for equitable opportunities. We called it equality. I got to break this down. We called it equality. Even Dr. King started to change that message toward, once again, the end of his journey. We're fighting for equality. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with the branding of the word equality. Equal is a mathematical symbol. Let me start there. When you measure equality in a social construct, you must have a measure of what equality looks like. So the measure became white men. You must be equal to white men in order to have equality. That became the paradigm. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm breaking down what we understand in hindsight. The paradigm became, once you can achieve the thing that a white male can achieve, you are thus equal. And so to do this, we had to thus integrate or assimilate into systems that white men were accepted in. So we needed to shop where they shopped. We had to eat where they could eat. We had to go to hotels that they were allowed to go to that we were not historically allowed to go to. Necessary process, yes. The accessibility, the dynamics of access needed to be there, but these are accessibility dynamics. These are places that we can access based on corporate dynamics. Can we go there? Yes, we can go there now. Can we commune there? Yes, we can. Can we assemble there? Yes, we can. That has very little to nothing to do with actual rights, freedoms, respect, equitable outcome. Dr. King put it best when he said, while we're fighting for equality, I'm looking for, and he termed it sincere, authentic equality. And then he provided the context for that statement. He says, it's one thing to sit where you want to sit in a restaurant. It's another thing to own it. That came from Dr. King. Now, they won't promote that, but it did happen. It's in an interview. You can find it yourself. It's easily there. So that contextualization even started with Dr. King, understanding it's not for lack of good faith on behalf of those who are good faith operators. It's the implementation protocol. All right, Jackson, interesting conversation, needed conversation, and obviously a conversation that requires significant nuance and context. What say you?
Yeah, I think it was really good the way that you described it. What happened here was less integration and more assimilation, because what we're really talking about is a broader discussion on infrastructure. So, before I get to here, like I'll use what Trevor was talking about, like Finland. Not only is Finland more homogenous, but it's very small compared to the United States, which is an empire that was built on immigration. And so there's no real American culture. American history is what America we talking about. We talking about the Confederacy. We talking about 13 states. We talking about the French-owned colonies, the Spanish-owned colonies. We talking about the native tribe lands. There's so much history that happened here. America really is a new idea built upon people of cultures from elsewhere. And so when you talk about things like universal health care or something like that, it's harder for us to get on board with any type of broad policy because you're dealing with a much bigger landmass and a much bigger body of people that are not homogenous. So first we got to talk about the empire in that regard. But then if you look at like integration and assimilation here, again, that's more of a conversation about infrastructure. For instance, what happened in the inner cities across the Rust Belt in the South in this country is industry simply moved to the suburbs. Like you used to have townships that were built for 30 or 40,000 people. Now there's 5 or 6,000 people living there. And so the school systems have no access to real funding. There's no good jobs. There's no real economy there because the economy just moved. And so these problems have solutions such as consolidating people into areas, just flat out knocking down huge areas of inner cities with these rotten vacant buildings that are doing absolutely nothing. These school districts that aren't worth a damn, getting rid of them, consolidating people into smaller groups. So there are a lot of solutions to these problems. But when people think about like, oh, well, why can't the Black community just come together? Well, it's spread out now. You know, a lot of it is spread out in the suburbs. And then when you go to the cities, again, you don't have any infrastructure. And so there used to be like Byron Donalds, he said stuff like during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. So he may be talking about stuff like how you had bigger Black neighborhoods in inner city areas where you had Black banks, Black grocery stores, Black everything. But those often were areas that's the only place Black people could be. You couldn't move outside of that. You know what I'm saying? So then as you were talking about assimilation, people had access to maybe get hired here, maybe move to a house out here, and then these communities just rotted away. So, you know, we're not Finland. We're not a country of 20 million people. I don't know how many people are there. We're a country of 330 plus million people from here, there, and everywhere, which is why I always talk about local politics to get involved in your backyard.
That's right.
Because there's so much going on here. If we want change, then we really have to focus where we have our fingers at.
Yeah, well said. Well said. We got more on the other side. Indisputable, stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only Black salesperson there. He's the only Black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token Black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Here's the inside scoop on diners in LA. You want good pastrami sandwich, you go to Factors. You want to see some people in the business, you go to Nate and Al's. You want the best variety? My secret spot's the Nosh. Now here's the inside scoop on politics and news. You go watch the Young Turks live every day at 6 o'clock Eastern.
Welcome back. Okay, lot of comments. I will read as many as I am able. Sarah Layla, Doc explains everything so perfectly. Don't know about that. We just may be of the same opinion. I'm sure many people have different opinions than I do, but thank you for that. Tyler Hackner, they don't like being called racist. Yeah. Oh, hippie. How do you assimilate into a system that has such a negative view of you? That's correct. And Neon Death 07, indigenous folks were forced to assimilate too. Fascist killer. Meanwhile, this is a hell of a question for Trevor Noah to ask. He's been questionable on the subject for quite a while, actually. Yeah. All right. Well, ASAP Rocky found not guilty. A boy's 24-year sentence. Put it up full mass. I mean, there was a whole lot of posturing here. This was the biggest criminal dynamic in the city. All right, rapper A$AP Rocky was found not guilty Tuesday for firing a handgun at a former friend on Hollywood Street in 2021. That was the allegation. Los Angeles jurors deliberated for only 3 hours before clearing him of 2 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. The 36-year-old hip-hop star, fashion mogul, actor, whose legal name is Rakeem. He's Rakeem Myers. He did risk more than 24 years in prison if he had been convicted. Rihanna attended the trial sporadically and brought the couple's 2 sons for some of the closing arguments. So when the verdict was read, A$AP jumped into the gallery to embrace his supporters. On the eve of the trial, he actually turned down a prosecution deal. The offer was 6 months. Let me just stop there. You're facing 24 years if you take this to trial, which in constitutional law, I argued along with some other progressives who were in the classroom, that's completely unconstitutional. You get punished for exercising your right to trial. Okay, so understand that's the way the system works, right? So if you go to trial, we're going to give you 24 years on a conviction. If you don't go to trial, we're going to give you 6 months. Well, that means the prosecution believes you're really worth only 6 months in prison. I mean, at the heart of it, you're only really as dangerous as 6 months. But if you make us work and you decide to utilize your constitutional right and face your accusers and make us have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are in fact guilty, we will seek 24 years. There are people who have done nothing in their lives illegal who would have taken that deal. They would have taken that deal, risking 24 years, and the prosecutor said, just give me 6 months, you can go home. All right? So that would have made him whole, according to the prosecution, if he would have pleaded guilty to simply 1 count, insisting on his innocence, however, and the 2 young toddler sons at home, along with his longtime partner Rihanna, the 36-year-old Rocky decided to gamble on his own innocence. And a jury seeing it the same way. It paid off. The jurors felt at least that there was a reasonable doubt of his guilt. Prosecution had to do their job. They did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the way it works. So prosecutors and their witnesses said that he was beefing with a former friend, A$AP Rocky, with whom he had been in a crew who called themselves the A$AP Mob since high school. They said the 2 men met up in Hollywood November 6, 2021. And after a scuffle, Rocky pulled the handgun, fired twice at the friend, who said one of the shots grazed his knuckle, but was not seriously hurt. Rocky's lawyer said in his closing argument that the friend is, quote, an angry pathological liar who, quote, committed perjury again and again and again and again, end quote. Rocky's lawyers and witnesses, they called, said Rocky had shot a prop gun that only fires blanks, which he had been carrying for security since taking it from a music video set months earlier. They said he fired it as a warning because his friend was attacking another member of his crew. The jurors were told that despite 3 years passing since the incident, no one mentioned the phony gun to authorities until the day the jury selection began at trial. They were also instructed that if they found that Rocky reasonably believed that he or one of the friends with him, that they were in imminent danger of injury, that he could have used reasonable force, they could find the defendant not guilty. It wasn't immediately clear whether they reached a verdict because they believed he was in fact carrying a prop gun or that he acted in self-defense. They did not have to agree on their reasoning or explain it outside of that jury room. They simply had to reach a conclusion, and they reached the exact same conclusion, every single one of them unanimously. All right, here we go. Hell of a thing, a lot of press, obviously, because of his fame. And once again, 6 months, just say you did it, 1 count, we good. You make us work and exercise your constitutional right, you get 24 years in prison. All right, Jackson, thoughts here?
Yeah, that is really a hell of a thing to think about. 6 months versus 24 years. I mean, that's a long time, man. That's a lifetime for a lot of people. 24 years, you really ain't coming back from that. So, definitely good for not just him and Brianna and his children that he's out and has a chance to hopefully not get in another situation, anything remotely similar to this. ASAP Rocky, he really can do much of whatever he wants to do for the rest of his life. He could make music and it don't gotta make it to no charts. He got a fan base. You know what I'm saying? So
That's right.
he really can do what he wants. So definitely happy that he didn't have to go down. But yeah, that 6 months to 24 years really shows just the power of any governmental body, but that's really where the power lays. Like, we will put you away really for however long we feel like it. If you tell on a couple people, we'll let you get away with a whole bunch of stuff. We'll do what we want. Work with us.
Yep.
So it's completely arbitrary.
Yeah, quite arbitrary. We have more on the other side. Indisputable. Stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Mateo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Here's the inside scoop on diners in LA. You want good pastrami sandwich, you go to Factors. You want to see some people in the business, you go to Nate and Al's. You want the best variety? My secret spot's the Nosh. Now here's the inside scoop on politics and news. You go watch the Young Turks live every day at 6 o'clock Eastern.
Welcome back. Lot of show left. Let me read a few comments. I appreciate everyone for joining. All right. Tarika says, my heart breaks for this baby and her family. Dear God, talking about 11-year-old. And Queen Gigi from GI, I am happy for Rocky, Riri, and Sons. There you go. Twin Dragon Tamer, my God, job made me late for Doc and Snack Attack.
All right.
As it sounds like you may need to seek different employment. That is a horrible lifestyle disruption. All right. We appreciate you joining the combo. Hell of a thing. Once again, cops, they decide to arrest somebody because, well, they had the audacity to have a stroke. Put it up, full ass. A jury in New Jersey has awarded a $12.9 million verdict. Did you hear that number? $12.9 million last week against a state trooper who failed to recognize that a woman, a motorist, was having a stroke, decided to arrest the motorist for DUI, crucially delaying medical treatment. After her attorneys argued this caused severe brain damage and left her permanently disabled. Cheryl Rhimes of Jersey City, then 48, was dressed in business attire, driving to a job as a marketing executive. This happened on the morning of October 17th, 2017. She suffered a stroke on the New Jersey Turnpike. That's in the lawsuit. Her car then hit the right guardrail of the highway and was still running when the state trooper, who was a rookie, the state trooper, Jennifer Albuja, approached at least 30 minutes later. This was at 9:14 a.m. Due to the stroke, Ms. Rhines was unable to respond to commands. Using the right side of her body to put the vehicle in park or turn it off. So the trooper did so. The complaint says she was also unable to speak and respond to commands from the trooper, such as retrieving her license from her bag. The trooper, according to a brief submitted by her attorneys, noted that Ms. Rhines was unresponsive to most of her questions and that she tried to put her seatbelt back on, seeking to assess whether she had driven off the road due to being under the influence or an underlying medical condition. The trooper posed a question to Ms. Rhines. Have you been drinking? Have you taken any drugs? Are you diabetic? When the trooper then returned to the patrol car, she saw Rhines get out of a vehicle and try to walk. She was, quote, wobbly on her feet and kept herself from falling by grabbing onto the side of a vehicle. She was in the middle of a stroke. The trooper at this point decided that Rhines was under the influence, maybe an unknown narcotic, and then decided to place the individual under arrest, handcuffing her, putting her into the back of the patrol car. The trooper then proceeded to search the woman's car and purse, finding no evidence of drug use. The trooper then testified that she did not notice during the encounter that Rhines had facial drooping, including drooping eyelids, one of the several known symptoms of a stroke in progress, along with slurred speech, disorientation, incoherence, staggered walking, her attorney said. Now, here's the problem. When do you call the ambulance? When do you make sure there's medical intervention? Even if you believe the individual is somehow on a narcotic, maybe a prescription drug, or even under the influence, if they are in that condition, they need to go to a medical professional. Period. They can barely talk, walk, stand. But she was not under any type of drug or alcohol-induced influence. When they arrived at her home, when they arrived at her home, police at her home police station, this was in Somerville, 10:32 a.m. So check the time, all right? The trooper noticed that Rhines had now vomited on her face and shirt, the complaint says. Rhines was unable to get out of the car and had to be carried into the police station. Once again, no medical intervention. A few minutes later, another trooper, Alejandro Molina, noticed that Rhines had what? Asymmetrical drooping on one side of her body, and said, I think she suffered a stroke. Realizing that she was in need of immediate, emergent medical attention, that trooper did the right thing and got medical intervention. Called the ambulance. As they waited for EMTs to arrive,
All right, Dr. Ritchie, it looks like
police officers left Rhines shackled to the floor, however. As they waited for the EMTs to arrive, they kept her shackled on the floor despite the medical emergency. Her attorney, Dennis M. Donnelly, told the New Jersey Monitor, Rhines was taken to a nearby hospital. She was then diagnosed with a stroke, treated with medication to clear a blood clot that was impeding blood flow to her brain. This is why the timing was important to get her medical attention. They did not. Unfortunately, by that point, the approximate 2.5 hour delay caused by defendant's conduct resulted in the death of significant brain function and permanent lifelong disability, the complaint argues. Ms. Rhines, who spent 2 weeks in the hospital and another month in a rehabilitation center, now has debilitating speech, cognitive, and motor deficits, all of which are considered permanent by the medical professional. She cannot return to work. She will require lifelong home care, medical treatment, supervision, the lawsuit says. Let's go to the jury award. So the jury did not see it that way, and after a nearly month-long trial, January 29th, initially awarded Rhines $19.1 million to cover her future medical care, emotional distress, pain and suffering, loss of employment, loss of life. However, after reviewing the evidence under the guidance of New Jersey Superior Court Judge Thomas Vina, the jury determined that 60% of her disabilities resulted from the delayed medical response and 40% from the stroke itself, which the trooper did not call. So they reduced the award by 40%. then factored in some additional medical costs, which lowered the final judgment to $12.9 million, according to a proposed order filed by the courts. Very sad story. The reality of negligence and also lack of just basic humanity when it comes to people. Jackson, thoughts here?
Yeah, definitely clear avoidable negligence, because usually if you get pulled over for, well, she was already over, but if you get they test you for a DWI in some way. They do they have you follow a pin, they'll have you walk in a line, they'll have you do all types of stuff, and that didn't happen at all. So I guess you could just chuck it up to her being a rookie, but police negligence is very common for people who've been on the force for decades. So it's just part of the culture, I guess.
Yeah, and I know sometimes we give rookies passes, but the reality is it's like a student just finishing the institution, whatever academic discipline they have taken. They typically are aware of the rules very well. You just came out of training. They train you medical, criminal. They train you what to involve yourself in, what not to, how to engage EMT professionals when necessary. All of this training is fresh on the rookie. Unfortunately, it's difficult to train people to have basic human instinct for humanity. All right, Jackson, always a pleasure having you on the program, dear brother. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
Absolutely. Always good to be here. Y'all can check me out at Politics and Paper on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@politicsandpaper. I got some exciting stuff coming up. I'm definitely ready to share it with you guys.
Proud of your leadership, dear brother. Remember, take care of yourself. Take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.